Hello! We're back to discuss another topic on logic. Our objective for this lesson is to learn more about deductive and inductive reasoning. As we have discussed on our previous video, deductive arguments begin with general statements to arrive at a more specific conclusion, while inductive arguments use specific observations to arrive at broader generalizations. Conclusions derived from deductive arguments tend to be certain, while conclusions derived from the inductive arguments rely on probability. Deductive arguments often begin with a general statement or the major premise. Then, it is paired with a minor premise or a more specific statement. Then, it is followed by a conclusion. A conclusion based on deductive reasoning is black and white. It is either true or false, and cannot be partly true or partly false. Its validity and truthfulness are decided by assessing the link between the premises and the conclusion. The stronger the link, the better. To go back to our example, if all flowers are plants and roses are flowers, there is no way roses cannot be plants. It is certain, based on this logic, that roses are plants. Here is another deductive argument. Deductive arguments are fairly easy to construct and understand, so you should have no problem using and identifying them. When encountering or using deductive reasoning, you must likewise be wary of arguments that appear to make sense but actually are not. This happens when the initial premise is too specific. For example, I hope it's obvious why that argument is illogical. So moving on, a conclusion based on induction is often drawn from established facts. You can say that it is the best possible explanation for things you observe to be true. You probably don't realize it, but you're making these conclusions all the time. If a person you know has terrible dating experience, like so many of my friends, and they give you advice on romance, you may not trust the advice to be good. Or when someone you know to have excellent literary or musical taste tells you to read a particular book or listen to a song, you may assume that you will enjoy their recommendations. A strong inductive argument simply means that its conclusion is very possible given the premises. For example, the following are the main types of inductive reasoning: generalized, statistical, analogous, predictive, causal inference. A generalized induction draws a conclusion from a generalization. For example, a statistical induction draws a conclusion based on statistics. For example, an analogous induction draws a conclusion based on shared properties of two groups. For example, a predictive induction draws a conclusion based on a prediction made using past observation. For example, finally, a causal inference draws a conclusion that is based on connections, or that something is likely to be the cause of something else. A few examples are: an important distinction between deductive and inductive arguments is that the conclusion derived from induction is uncertain and may change any time in the future. When we use inductive reasoning, we are also accepting that we are simply drawing conclusions from our experiences or existing information, and that both our beliefs and what are currently known as common or scientific facts are still subject to updates and revisions. Every day, inductive reasoning is useful, but it is not always reliable or correct. We must be careful not to overuse it. The world is not always predictable. As the saying goes, past performance is not always an indicator of future results. We may also develop biases that may affect the way we form conclusions. For instance, you may inductively reason that you are bad at math and only remember the times you failed math tests to prove this belief, and not the times you were able to understand and solve mathematical problems. That's it for this video. I hope you learned something today. See you next time.